Regardless of looks, a small rear-engine sports car is always going to be a bit enticing. The Smart Roadster was once suggested as an alternative to a Lotus Elise. Sounds like a bit of an optimistic comparison, but then I've heard they're great fun to drive, and with prices now as low as $3 to $4 grand for a good one, it's starting to look like a serious bargain. The styling is certainly an acquired taste. A ham-fisted rummage through the company's spare parts bin has given rise to a stubby and awkward rear end that gives it a kind of unfortunate, straight out of the hair salon look. The front is altogether more attractive though, with a long and flowing bonnet that is said to take inspiration from the small, frog-eyed British sports cars of the 1960s. But this car is not about style, it's about the driving experience. So what's it like? To find out, I drove a Smart Roadster from central London to a wedding in Somerset. The traffic leaving the city was typically awful, but the go-kart-like feel meant it was never boring, even in the 30 zone, which eventually we left and started making some proper progress.
Roundabouts really seem to be the car's sweet spot, which sounds a bit strange, but it's just such good fun. Those tiny little corners, come on transit van, get out of the way. Right, well finally we're out on the motorway after all that traffic, and the first thing that you can notice is it's pretty loud in here at motorway speeds, doing 75 miles an hour. You get a lot of buffeting, but I think that is to be expected. The amazing thing about this car is that you can actually put the roof up at any speed, which is pretty rare, I'd say, in most cars. I will demonstrate. I'm going to keep it up just so I don't lose my voice. What you can also do to make it into a full convertible, you may have noticed that these side pillars here are still up, and you can actually take these off. What you do is you go and remove this panel here, and then you walk around the other side and remove that panel there, and they actually store in a cubby hole right at the front in the front boot. And that's quite clever, but it's a bit of a faff to do most of the time, so I don't really bother. I just take this roof back and I'm happy with that.
After more rubbernecking tailbacks around the perennial, if picturesque traffic jam that is Stonehenge, can't pretend I wasn't adding to the problem, we were cutting it a little bit fine for the wedding. The upside was that we were now out in the beautiful Somerset levels, full of twisty country lanes and the perfect place to test out the Smart's performance and handling. It's powered by a heavily turboed unit, whose tuneful 3 cylinders almost fool you into thinking you're driving an inline 6. With the little engine fizzing and whistling away behind me, I was starting to have a lot of fun.
It only displaces 698cc, and that's only good for about 81 horsepower, but the whole thing weighs only about 690 kilograms, so you don't really notice all that much. The acceleration from 0 to 30 is really very good. After that, it slows up, it hasn't quite got the power, but it's a lovely little engine. In a way, it's very old school turbocharging. You stick your foot down, and then only after a second ago, it really squirts towards the horizon. It's between 4,000 and 5,000 revs, the turbo really kicks in then, and then really pushes on. It's such a fantastic little car though, it always just brings a smile to your face. It's just a joy to drive all of the time. And these smooth flowing corners, it's just so well balanced, the chassis. It just sticks to the road even in these quite greasy conditions. You really can generate a surprising amount of G in the corners. You kind of wish that it had a little bit more lateral support. You wouldn't expect it from such a low-powered car, but it sticks to the road so well, it can just whiz around these corners no problem. 0 to 60 times. Revs right up to 6,000, 7,000 revs. And we're at 60. That's not particularly quick, it's about just under 11 seconds. It does feel like you get there quite quickly. I think what lets the car down is the fact that it enforces a gear change at about 58 miles an hour, which is not ideal for your 0 to 60 times, but it's not really what the car is all about.
You may think that a semi-automatic sequential gearbox means you can drive it like a manual. Well, nah, you can't really. Much like the traction control, when it's off, it's never fully off, which means it'll infuriate you by often insisting on shifting for you at the top end. What is wrong with 3 pedals and a stick? On a more positive note, the twisty but empty Somerset roads combined with the Smart's super agile handling meant we'd already made up a lot of time. Straight line acceleration on a par with modern people carriers is enough to put some buyers off, but it really shouldn't be. For this car is not about all-out speed, it's about a perceived sense of speed. It's so low to the ground and so small and nimble that it often feels like you're going everywhere at about 100 miles an hour, when often you're only doing about half that. The amount of speed you can carry into the corners is also seriously impressive, and in my book, that beats horsepower hands down. We eventually arrived at the wedding in plenty of time. Heading back the next evening, I was reflecting on my time with the car and how I'd enjoyed it so much that I was going to feel pretty gutted to have to return it when we got back. Yes, it looks a bit weird from some angles, yes, it isn't that fast, and yes, it shares 30% of its components with the standard smart car. But what other rear-engine sports car does 55 to the gallon, costs under £5,000, and still puts a big smile on your face? What's more, with only 7,000 examples ever making it to the UK, it's got all the hallmarks of an appreciating future classic.